Hi, I'm Mike. Welcome to my Waffle Square, where I obsess about things and you get to benefit from it. So I bought the cheapest Land Rover on OfferUp. This is a 2006 Land Rover LR3 with the V8 gasoline engine. And I got it for $2,500. And these go all day long in this Las Vegas area and then down in California within a 200-mile range for upwards of $6,000 to $9,000, sometimes even $12,000. So how did I get it for so cheap? Well, there's plenty of work to do. Now, this vehicle was owned by a single woman, and the amount of maintenance issues that were needed to get it back up to good running condition were overwhelming to her. Probably the final straw was she had just taken it to get the smog check and it failed smog. Next thing that scared her was the transmission. She says it's slipping between the second and third gear. I drove it and can confirm that. Now, most people think when issues like that arise that you might need to replace the entire transmission. However, that's not necessarily the case with these transmissions in the Jaguars and Land Rovers. Now, cosmetically, the first thing you notice is the hood and the roof. Both are quite oxidized and faded. And that's not uncommon here for black vehicles or any vehicle that sits out in the sun. This grille is aftermarket and I think it's really cool. Only problem is it's only connected up top, and the bottom, well, the bottom is just kind of free to roam. The fog light right below the driver's side headlight is completely broken out. Both headlights are all yellowed and oxidized. All four tires are actually in really good shape. The only problem with any of them is this front passenger wheel is missing a lug nut. This cover plate right here is missing on the back, and there's also a little plastic piece on the bumper itself that is missing. The back bumper and the door to the fuel tank all have stickers all over them that are going to need to be removed. But most notably back here is the fact that there's no button to open the back window. Instead, you have to crawl inside, find this cable, pull it to release the top so that you can then push this button to let the bottom down. That's gonna have to be rectified. Overall, the interior is not really bad. There's some cracking around where the airbag goes on the dashboard, but nothing else. And as you can see, the driver's side seat and armrest are pretty worn out, and the leather's gonna need to be replaced. You know, even the buttons on the key don't work. Well, good news is it came with a spare tire. So, yeah. Now, you may be asking yourself, why take on a project this big? Well, several reasons. First and foremost, these Land Rovers require technical ability more than brute strength, investigation, digging into the OBD sensor, finding the problems, and then fixing those. And that appeals to me. Secondly, the LR3 was made during the time when Ford owned these vehicles, and so there's a very dependable Ford engine inside which runs very well and has very few problems if you maintain it properly. Also, the transmission is very common, and as long as you maintain it properly and do some technical repairs to it, it lasts a long time. Now, third and probably most important, our youngest daughter, Aspen, has just watched her older sister get her driver's license and start driving on her own, and that's really inspired her. Now, in addition to talking and all things pretty princessy, Aspen also really likes monster trucks, and she would love to have some lifted vehicle that she can go bombing down a trail or maybe even do some rock crawling with. That sounds pretty unsafe to me, but the thing I love about these Land Rover Discovery 3s is the air suspension can be lifted and then lowered back down. So when you're driving down the road under normal conditions, you put it into this position here, you're going down the road, you have a low center of gravity, it's very safe. But as soon as you want to go off trail, as rare as that typically is, you flip a switch, the airbags fill up, and you've got a nice amount of ground clearance. Only problem with that air suspension is it was working good, but on the drive home, this happened. So we're bouncing pretty good because the suspension is all the way bottomed out on our drive home. And I'm not sure if you can see because I can't hold the phone steady, but Looks like the front passenger tire has a little blinking red light on the screen, so that might be the place to start investigating. But over here we have that red light you see underneath the RPM. It's talking about the suspension, and then the little center green screen is giving us a suspension fault indicator. The vehicle completely bottomed out, and it is a terrible ride right now. So there is some issue on this front passenger side that we're gonna have to rectify. Now, another one of the things that I love about these LR3s is they have 1, 2, 3 sunroofs, each of them with a little screen that can close.
So cool.
Now, one of the funnest features of the back seat are these handles on either side of the headrest of the 2 front seats. So you can hold on to these and grip them as you're bombing down the road looking out the window. Pretty cool. There's also room for days, cup holders everywhere. You've got 2 AC vents up in the headliner, 2 down here on the center console, all of which are controlled by 3 dials up here where you can separate the temperatures out for either passenger. This DVD player is also a really nice feature. The only problem with this one is we're having to hold it up with a piece of tape because the latch is broken. Well, we've got a lot to do, and I'm not a mechanic. I just dress like one on YouTube. But right inside this garage door, we've got a quick jack lift so we can lift it up and do some work. Aspen and I are going to start off by doing an oil change, and then we're also going to address that first issue of the intake air temperature sensor and see if we can get that code to go away so it'll pass smog. So we got our quick jack set up and the whole bay of the garage lined with plastic, because something tells me this might be a dirty job. All right, get it. Nice. All right, so there's usually a big pan right where Aspen's head is that's covering all this. We have it, but it was in the back seat when we picked up the car, huh?
Yeah.
We gotta buy the bolts to put that back on. So that would be the first step. But now we're gonna take off the drain plug and we're gonna drain the oil. And Aspen, tell them from that other video what's gonna happen with the oil.
So the oil is gonna spew, and it might hit this. So we have a bucket, and we're gonna put it right there. So when the oil spews, it won't get this all dirty.
Exactly right. All right, you might need my help to break that loose, but why don't you go ahead with the ratchet and give it a try.
Okay.
19 millimeter. All the way down at the end to really give you the leverage. Atta girl. Good, you got it.
Oh.
Look at you. Was it really on there tight?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's why it wasn't leaking. You want to do the bucket and I'll do the plug?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here it goes. Yeah.
Blah.
Are you okay holding that?
Yeah.
Well, I get up top and open up the fill cap up top. Oh, there's a lot in there. We're all the way up to 6 quarts. 7 quarts is coming. So the plug on the left is the one we just pulled out. And to prevent the future of that oil going everywhere, we're gonna put in this easy oil drain valve. And it has that little 90-degree elbow that you thread on, and that will redirect the oil straight down, or you can even attach a hose to that and bring it right down, so no mess on the next one. All right, the oil's all the way down to just a drip, and no time too soon, this 2-gallon bucket here is about full. So I'm just gonna wipe this off and install our easy pour spout. It threads on there. Thread pattern is supposedly the same, 14 millimeter dash 1.5, so it should fit. You go to hand tight and you give it another 1/8 of a turn. We can move this oil out of the way so I can get in here with the wrench. All right, let's reset the camera and get the oil filter. All right, we have a couple cooler lines coming into this ribbed box here. just behind the front bumper, and that's where the oil filter is. So we're gonna get in here and we gotta take that off. There we go. Oh, it's coming. There it goes.
That's also gonna be a lot of oil.
I think it's gonna be a mess, huh?
Me too.
See if we can let a majority of that spill out first. I'll tell you what, babe, the oil we're putting back in is going to be a lot cleaner.
This is the oil we just changed out, and this is the brand new oil. It's all dirty, the oil we just changed out. Hey look, it is going in the hole.
Yeah, it's got a little slope and it goes right into the hole, and then you can take it down to the auto store and they'll take the oil back.
Sweet.
There it goes. Whoa. And then we'll let this guy drain. Interesting design. It gets oil all over the hoses.
Yeah.
Now while that's draining, we can get under here and start looking around, and as you and I have already noticed, there is antifreeze everywhere. So we've got a leak, and it's on so much stuff I can't really tell where it's coming from. So I think what we should do is get a wet rag, clean it all off, and then look under when we're running the engine, and we'll be able to see the beginnings of it, I hope. Next thing we want to do is oil the gasket. So Aspen got to dip her finger in some oil and just rub it right around that black rubber gasket all the way around. That helps to lubricate it so it's easier to get it off the next time. I like to pre-fill these a little bit, but since it goes in landscape-wise like this, horizontally, it wouldn't make much sense. So we're just going to get under there and screw it in the exact opposite way we took it off. I really like these Wix filters. I've watched several YouTube videos where they take them apart and they have really good components. Another thing I like is look at right here on the filter itself. It answers your question. Once I seat it, how far of a turn do I tighten it? And it says right there on step 4, 3/4 of a turn. All right. Can you get it started, or do you need me to help you?
Right there. This is what the glove used to look like, and now it's gone to this.
Pretty dirty. So not only does the oil cap say Land Rover recommends Castrol 5W30, but the manual gets even more specific, stating a GTX 5W30, and then it has a specific code, a WSS code that in parentheses says GF3 oil. So even though this is Castrol GTX, just like they specifically recommend, when you look on the back, this is meeting a different specification. It's GF6, so it's possible some of the things in this oil aren't what this original engine was designed for. But when I Googled alternatives to that specific code, it came up with this exact GTX oil and the Motorcraft oil made by Ford, which makes sense since this engine was made by Ford. Anyway, if those two are what they're currently recommending, I feel safe going with it. When standing at the front of the engine, all the way back on the right side near the cowl and the windshield is the big oil cap, and you can make it out because it says Land Rover recommends Castrol 5W30. So that's a pretty big opening right there. We're just going to make it even easier for us and put this funnel in there. All right, go ahead and dump that before and after comparison oil. And I'll start dumping that big oil. Now a little tip, if you turn it sideways rather than pour it like this, if you turn it sideways, it comes out a lot smoother. And it's going to take this entire 5 quarts and a couple more from the other bottle.
So clean.
That is clean. We could put the old dirty oil back in these and take it back to the auto parts store.
Yeah.
Well, first 5 quarts down. According to Google, this engine takes 7.7 liters, which translates to like 8.13 quarts. So I'm going to put 8 quarts in to start, judging by what we took out of it. And then we can run it and check and add if necessary. Well, one of the reasons that the previous owner wanted to sell this vehicle is that it just recently failed a smog inspection, and she was worried that that would cost her a lot of money. So she showed me the report, and I also double checked that code with my own code reader, and the specific code that the engine was throwing was a P113, which is the air intake temperature sensor. So because the check engine light was on for that code, she automatically failed the smog inspection. It's called an OBD-MIL fail. I looked it up. It just means they start at check engine light, and if that's on, you fail and pay them like half the money, which is kind of a bummer. So I'm hoping to alleviate that code by doing three things. I'm going to change out the air filter, I'm going to clean the mass airflow sensor, and while we're at it, why not clean the throttle body so that we continue to have a good smooth idle. And both of those two things require different cleaners, and I have both of those here. So the air box is held on with 6 screws, and I recommend that you have an extension for your either long screwdriver or an extension for your cordless drill to get all these out. So when I lift this up and I look, I see that this is a K&N filter. K&N makes really good filters. In fact, I have the K&N filter oil for our little UTV that you may have seen in other videos. Problem with a K&N filter is that when you spray that oil on it and you put it back in here, there is some talk online that that oil with the air running through it may get on the mass airflow sensor and cause it to get dirty quicker. So I know K&Ns are great filters, but I'm going to change it out for a Wix filter. That's a $43 filter, so it's pretty high quality. First thing I want to do though is take my vacuum and just clean out all the dust that's in here, a couple little bits of debris, so that we get the best possible head start. So let's do that now. Next is our Wix filter, and look at the difference in thickness. It's amazing what a K&N filter can do with that oil on it. That gasket around the edge is a perfect fit. So I'm going to wait to screw that back in case I want to remove this whole thing when it comes time to get to the throttle body. Next, let's work on the mass airflow sensor. That requires a T20 bit. And I'm just going to do this by hand, not use my drill. I don't want to take any risk of cracking it on the way back, tightening. And out that comes. It doesn't look too bad, but let's clean it anyway. So the mass airflow sensor is this little guy right here. It almost looks like a match head. And we just want to spray in there for 2-3 second bursts. And that dries really quick. As I look in there, pretty clean. Next, we'll move on to the throttle body. So we need to take off this little clamp right here holding on the intake hose. That is a 9/32. There we go. There we go. And because probably no 2 screws in this whole thing are alike, the actual 4 bolts holding on the throttle body are a 5/16. Wow, those are really on there. So it looks like they were using blue thread lock on here, and that would explain why it was so hard to loosen, because if I remember right, these are only like 7 pounds of torque. I'll double check. You know, it looks like the tab that holds on this plug is broken off. Ooh, and part of the surrounding area of this plug is also broken off. All right, so right in between these two sections is a metal gasket. And that's it right there, and looks like they have some sort of gasket sealer on there, so we don't have to worry about it falling off. Now, what's interesting about the throttle body here is there's two vent pipes, two breather valves, one on the clean side, one past the throttle body sensor, and what they tend to do is get a buildup of varnish on them because of the gases coming in from the crankcase. So we're going to clean all that off, and it should run a lot better. Now as I look down in there, I'm going to grab a flashlight and check that out. It doesn't look too terrible. I don't see... I'll have to get in there with my little scope and see how that looks in there. All right, got one of these drop cloths all set up around it. There's two hoses underneath. They look like they could be coolant hoses, so I don't want to detach those and take the risk, so we're just going to clean it right here. So the directions say to give a good shot, cleaning it all out, let that sit and let the solvents go to work, and then follow that up with another one for maximum effect. So let's do that. This side has a lot of varnish on it. I'm just going to gently wipe that off. I don't want to actually move this baffle open or closed. I watched a video where they said there's a chance that that could mess up the calibration, so what I'm doing here is getting plenty of grime off of there. Yeah, that looks so much better already. This intake side's really not too bad, but we're getting a little. All right, follow up here.
How's it going?
Good.
Sweet.
Getting a bunch of grime off.
Thank you.
You're welcome, baby. All right, I got everything put back together with the throttle body. I did end up using the blue Loctite. I like blue Loctite. Someone else used it, so I can see how this would get a lot of vibration, and we don't want that coming loose. So I got everything in hand tight. I got a little neck down 5/16 for my smallest torque wrench, and I double checked it is 7 foot-pounds. So let's do that. I'm going to do it in a cross pattern. There we go. Go. Good. All right, before I button all this up, there is a bunch of old staining from when, according to the previous owner, the coolant reservoir blew up and sprayed stuff everywhere. It's since been replaced. I saw the receipt for it. So I'm going to get in here with a rag and just clean everything up first, so that when we're diagnosing issues later on, I'll know we started from a clean canvas. Well, by no means is it a crisp fix super clean, but it looks so much better than it did before. I cleaned off all those water spots and coolant deposits off the entire engine, and that way I can help diagnose what other issues might be going on with any other leaks, starting from a nice clean pallet. Now, before you start to wonder, we do also have the engine cover. It's just that we don't have any of the 4 bolts. This was in the back seat when we bought the vehicle. So those bolts are on order, and then we have to clean it up just like we did the engine. The one thing I would love some advice on is where I might be able to find this sound deadener here, because this one is pretty badly torn up. Please leave a comment below if you've got any suggestions. All right, we're about ready to clear the code on this guy and fire it back up and check our oil levels. So to clear that engine fault code, I could have very easily used the Blue Driver OBD sensor that I brought with me to originally buy this vehicle, but I have since purchased the gap diagnostics tool specifically for the LR3. And the reason for that is there are so many more features with this tool where you can deep dive into the computer, tweak things, clear things. For example, when it comes time to service the transmission, there are some settings or some readings that can be cleared out of the computer so that it gains a fresh perspective after we service it on how to properly shift the transmission. Things like that can't be done with the Blue Driver, so I did bite the bullet of over $500 to buy this tool off of eBay. Now I saved a little bit of money by buying one that also came with a key, since ours is messed up and you're supposed to be able to program that remote with the gap diagnostics tool. So I plugged it in underneath the dashboard, and then I fired up the app, and as you can see here, I went into the engine faults and I cleared that code. Now we're going to start up the engine and see if that code comes back. Well, I ran the engine for about 10 minutes till it got up to temperature, and you can see just a really steady drip of coolant. And if we get under here and look, it all seems to be coming right from that bottom area. Well, good news, after running the engine for about 10 minutes to get it up to operating temperature, there's no drips at all coming from this cool little drain valve. Well, that's going to do it for this first episode of refurbishing this LR3, and I hope you enjoyed it. If so, will you please give it a thumbs up? It really helps the YouTube algorithm to start suggesting it to more people like you. Also, please consider subscribing. There's going to be a whole lot more videos to come. Now I'm going to leave links for all the various items that we discussed and installed on the vehicle. Full disclosure, those are Amazon affiliate links, so if you click on them and end up making a purchase, it won't cost you a thing, but I do get a small reward at the end of the month. It helps to justify the extra time it takes to make these videos. Speaking of which, I really wanted the next one to be a simple coolant flush in preparation for servicing the transmission and then going around on a bunch of test drives to see if we're getting any more faults. But because of that significant coolant leak on the front of the engine, we're going to have to tackle that next. So what I think we're going to do is get a pressure tester, take the cowling off and the fan blade off, and we're going to get down in there and pressurize the system, figure out where the leak is, and try to fix it. So I hope you'll join me for that next episode. Until then, thank you for watching.